Caitlin Clark coming down. Great dribble penetration by Sophie Cunningham. 2 feet in the paint and then finds.
That's no good. Reese and Hillman had a chance. Samsonite way off. Reese is frustrated. We are going to overtime. Things you don't love to see. Your Fever up by 2. Boston attacking. Finds Makayla Timpson for the alley-oop. Fever up 4. Next Fever possession. Mitchell attacks, pulls up. Timpson gets the board here. Lays it in.
Angel Reese tried to take Caitlin Clark's head off the other night, and the refs didn't even blow the whistle. No foul call, no free throws, nothing. So, what happened next? Clark got up, dusted herself off, and went out and broke 8 WNBA records in one game. 12 total for the Fever. And by the end of the night, Ree wasn't even talking about the loss. She was mad about something else entirely because she too set a record. An embarrassing one at that. We're breaking down every single record and then telling you exactly what Angel Reese did after the game that's got everyone talking. Who do yai? There's Clark, guarded by Sherrod. Finds Timpson on the roll, she'll lay it in. Clark bangs all the way in and finish. Here is Clark working behind Boston. First quarter, ball off the rim. Ryan Howard's miss and everybody's crashing in for the rebound. Angel Reese grabs Caitlin Clark by the neck and shoves her right in front of 2 officials. Right in the middle of the paint. No foul, no free throws, no technical, nothing shows up on that scoreboard at all. And if you go back and watch it slow, this isn't some incidental bump where 2 players get tangled up going for a board. This is a hand on the neck. Analysts who broke down the tape afterwards said flat out, if it's not intentional, it's a flagrant one. And if it is intentional, you're tossing her from the game. Instead, play just continues like nothing happened. 410 to go in the first, and the Fever lead by 2. Before any of this, the Fever walked in riding a 3-game win streak in the middle of a brutal road trip that head coach Stephanie White said actually grew this team up. White talked about how different this Indiana squad looks now compared to the last time they played Atlanta, calling them more mature, more mentally tough, built for exactly this kind of test. And Atlanta came into this one waiting with a defense built on length and contact. Atlanta builds an early lead, leaning on hard screens, closeouts that come in way too hot, and none of it gets flagged. It's not just the neck grab either. This has been the story all season for Clark. Uncalled hits, moving screens that catch her flush, and a growing pile of clips that make fans and analysts keep asking the same question. Is she getting officiated differently than everybody else on the floor? Here's what Clark does with all of it. Nothing. No arguing, no theatrics, no looking for sympathy. She just gets back on a fence and keeps playing basketball. Aliyah Boston does the same thing on the other end, holding down the paint on defense and cleaning up boards, showing the Fever aren't just taking punishment, they're answering it with poise. Indiana keeps pushing tempo, keeps moving the ball, refusing to let Atlanta drag this into a slow, physical slog. And that's exactly why the score stays close, because Indiana won't fight fire with fire. Caitlin Clark is walking down that MVP. Look, she's going to have to do extra to get it. We know that it's going to have to be undeniable. You're going to have to put the voters in a position where they look like absolute fools if they don't vote for Caitlin Clark. We know that. But she is starting to put that case together. She's producing more points than anyone ever has at some point. You got to give it up. But will that happen, or will it remain crickets? Because we know if it were the other way, if Caitlin was struggling, it'd be loud. Will that same energy be kept? How does one player break 8 WNBA records in a single game while getting hit like she's playing a different sport? Let's get into it because the box score alone doesn't even tell half of it. Clark finished with 26 points and 9 assists, shooting efficient numbers across the board. And that's before you get to anything historical. That's just a normal Sunday stat line for her at this point. Clark became the fastest player in WNBA or NBA history to hit 700 career assists. And she did it in just 83 games. That's not a typo. And it's not just this record either. She already owns the fastest 2 marks for 200, 300, 400, 500, and 600 career assists too. So she's basically been breaking the same record over and over again all season, just at different checkpoints. Then there's the 25 and 5 club. Clark posted her 23rd career game with at least 25 points and 5 assists, which moves her into 5th place all-time, passing Breanna Stewart and Kelsey Plum in the process. And here's the part that really shows how fast she's climbing. 12 of those 23 games came this season alone, which extends her own WNBA single-season record even further. She's not just chasing names on a list anymore, she's lapping her own pace. Finds Clark back to Timpson in the lane for the lay. Pair that with the fact she's led the league in assists per game across all 3 years she's played, and you've got a phenom doing 2 jobs that usually belong to 2 different players entirely. Now, zoom into an 11-game stretch because this is the number that should stop you. Clark is the only player in WNBA history to average 26 points and 9 assists per game over an 11-game span. And she's doing it shooting 50% from the field, 41% from 3, and 87% from the free throw line. Sit with that for a second because that's not a hot streak, that's a guard playing a stretch of basketball nobody else in league history has ever played. Add it all up and you get the number that sums up her whole season, 39.8 points per game either scored or assisted on, the highest combined average in WNBA history. And since the All-Star break, she's been the most efficient 25-point-per-game scorer in the entire WNBA. Not the most efficient point guard, the most efficient scorer at that level. Period. At any position, stack all 8 of these together and you stop seeing one big performance and start seeing a full season of dominance that just happened to show up in one box score against Atlanta. This isn't a case of a player catching fire for one night and riding a wave of hype. It's a queue of records that were already halfway broken before she ever stepped on the floor against the Dream. And this game just pushed them over the line. But Clark didn't do any of this in a vacuum, and Atlanta couldn't just load up on her and call it a game plan. The next names on this list are exactly why that strategy fell apart. Kelsey Mitchell, Aliyah Boston combining for 63 points per game, which is the highest combined point game total for a trio in WNBA history. Mitchell firing and hitting on a break, Lark lobbing it in, Boston deep position and the finish. Lark bangs all the way in and finishes as the switch on, Ree will fire and hit from 3. Mitchell's part of this story is a streak that just keeps stretching. She extended her own WNBA single-season record to 19 straight games, scoring 20 or more points. And she needed every second of overtime to get there, finishing with 20 points on 9 of 22 shooting. Her layup with 13.6 seconds left in overtime is the shot that actually sealed the win. And it's exactly the kind of bucket that's kept this streak a. Then there's Makayla Timpson, and this is the name nobody saw coming in April.
Indiana is now 5-0 this season when she starts, and that number alone tells you she's not some feel-good bench story anymore. She's a piece the Fever actually need on the floor. Clark talked about Timpson's growth after the game, telling Holly Rowe, Kay has done everything great. I think her off-ball cutting, her 90 cutting, the way she finishes around the rim, just really proud of her and the way she's grown over the last, since All-Star break. She's been huge for us and a difference maker. Timpson herself put it simply, my teammates believe in me. My coaches believe in me so much. I don't got a choice but to believe in myself. That's a guard telling you exactly why a bench piece turned into a starter who shows up in the record books. Dashing ahead will fire and hit. Tie game at 81. Mitchell lays it in. 2-possession lead for Indiana and a 19th straight game with 20. But her defense is what actually let this offense function because every drive Clark took to the rim had Boston clearing space underneath, forcing Atlanta's bigs to collapse instead of sitting on the perimeter shooters. And then there's Sophie Cunningham, who owns the highest three-point percentage in the entire WNBA this season at 45.5% on at least 100 attempts. Take a second with that number because that's not just good, that's the best mark in the whole league by anybody at any volume that counts. And she still didn't get invited to the All-Star three-point contest. Fans pointed it out immediately once the numbers came out, calling it one of the stranger snubs of the season, especially with Cunningham quietly outshooting every single player who did get picked. 4 names, 4 different records, 4 different ways of hurting a defense that came in ready to be physical. Atlanta didn't just lose to Clark, and none of those records mattered yet because the game itself still had to be won. Regulation ends tied at 81, and Atlanta still hasn't let up on the physical stuff. But that same approach is about to fall apart in front of everybody watching. Indiana had spent most of the first half chasing this game, down big and absorbing hit after hit, until the fourth quarter flipped everything. Coach White threw a zone defense at Atlanta that completely locked things down, holding the Dream to just 9 points in the quarter, while Indiana poured in 17, erasing a deficit that looked untouchable an hour earlier. There's three things that's guaranteed in life: death, taxes, and Angel Reese missing crucial layups. And my goodness, she missed it at a perfect time. Thank you, Angelise, because now a Fever can move up in the standings because of you. You blew it for your Dream. 5 seconds. Howard launches. Atlanta doesn't change a thing about how they're playing, even in overtime. Except now, every extra possession they give Indiana turns into more points, instead of stopping the bleeding. That physical approach that worked in the first half completely stops paying off once Indiana's shooters get hot and the whistle stays quiet on both ends. All of that builds to the moment everybody's still talking about. Ree gets the offensive rebound with a chance to tie it or even win the whole game outright, wide open under the rim. And the layup clangs off and misses completely. Cameras catch Clark walking right behind her a second later, and she's smiling, not even trying to hide it. That clip alone spread everywhere within minutes because it's Clark, calm as ever, cracking up at the exact moment Atlanta's whole physical game plan fell apart in real time. 3 to shoot. Ree will fire a 3, hit Sherrod with Reese leaking out. And after the game, she wasn't even talking about the loss. She was mad about something else completely because that shooting night made her officially the worst shooter in the league from 5 feet. And in this season, a record she also owns from her rookie year. Instant karma, plain and simple. The player throwing elbows and grabbing necks all night long walks away with the ugliest shooting stat in the whole league. Not Clark, who took every hit and still ran the floor like nothing happened. That win pushes Indiana to 23-12, stretching their lead over Atlanta's 21-13 record for the 4th seed, and turns one physical chippy night into a real difference in the standings. Atlanta continues to own the offensive glass here in the 4th quarter. Great board, just could not convert it. Was pushed under the hoop just enough to not have a great angle. To OT we go. Final score 95-91, and that moves Indiana to 23 wins and 12 losses. So Atlanta can't even lean on the tiebreaker anymore. Indiana controls their own path to a top 4 finish now. And that's a real thing heading into the last stretch of the season. Look at what each side walks away with here. Clark takes a shot to the head with no whistle, gets hammered all night with no calls, and still leaves with 8 broken records and a win. Reese throws elbows and hard fouls all game, misses the layup that could have tied or won it, and leaves with the worst shooting stat line from 5 feet and in this whole season. One player absorbed everything and produced history. The other produced contact and walked away with nothing to show for it. Indiana doesn't get to celebrate for long either because this was game 1 of a 5-game road trip in 8 days. Toronto's up next, then Dallas, then New York, then Chicago. So here's the real question.